Hello, my name is Jake, and in this video series, we're going to be building a sample application together so that you can see how quick and easy it is to modernize and digitize processes with GW Apps. Now, for those of you who don't know, GW Apps is a no-code web application development platform that helps you manage business processes, organize your data, automate tasks, and overall helps your organization achieve more with lower costs. The sample application that we're going to be building is the event planning application. This application is suitable for companies that organize internal or customer events on a frequent basis. You can use this app to plan and manage customer events, sales meetings, project launches, etc. You can record all of the tasks that are required to have a successful event and assign them to various departments and users. Teams will be able to easily see the tasks they are responsible for, when they are due, and record their progress. A typical event may need involvement from marketing, operations, sales, and IT, and this gives you an efficient method to coordinate all the tasks for a successful event. So here we are in a completed event planning application. This application has two primary forms, an event form, which is the form we're looking at right now, and a task form. This event form is broken down into three tabs. We have our event info tab, where we can collect all the general event information, title, location, schedule, etc. We also have a tasks tab, where we can see any in progress or planned tasks for the event, as well as any completed tasks. And finally, we have a documents tab for any attachment uploads or connecting to a Google Drive, etc. The other primary form is the task form. Pretty straightforward. This form is just for creating and assigning tasks to events, departments, and users. The last form in this application is a very simple one-field form, and it is just used to create and manage list selection options for that department field on the task form. You can see if I click New here, this is just a one-field form, and it, again, is only used to create and manage these list selection options here. Now, all of these forms have associated views, which we will also be creating. For the events, we have active events, we have an event calendar, and we have archived events, past events. Tasks, we have also just many different ways of organizing our tasks by due date, by event, by assignee, by department. We've got a Kanban board, and of course, we've got a calendar. So that's the completed application. That's what we're aiming for. Let's go ahead and get started building. So here I am on my application dashboard. This is where I can see all of the applications that I personally have access to. Now, the very first thing we need to do is create the shell of our application. So I'm going to click New App. We're going to build it from scratch. Let's give it a name, Event Planning. All right, let's choose an icon. I'll go with a date icon and create now. Perfect. All right, now that our application has been created, we get to design our very first form, which will be our event form. Right now it's called Event Planning. You can see it on the left here. We're going to change this just to Event and hit that check mark there. Now let's go ahead and open the design editor. You can see we've got a totally blank form here with one section. Let's rename this section to Event Info. Perfect. Now, when designing our form, we need to first decide what kind of information our users and the business process needs, and then find the appropriate fields on the left-hand side field palette. For the layout, that is, which field should go where, it's usually a good idea to group together related fields, such as a first name and last name field. And if we have more than just a few fields on our form, we can use column layouts to arrange more than one field in a row. If there are several different types of groups of information, like requester or approval info, we can use different sections to visually separate those groupings. Now, for our form, we're going to start with a two-column layout, so I'm going to drag that in, and we're also going to add a text field here for the event title, okay? And I'm also going to add a user field for the event manager. I'm also going to grab a rich text field. This one will be our event overview / description. Perfect. All right. I'm also going to grab another two-column layout, drag it below there. We'll use a text area field for our target attendance field. All right. And then finally, another text field. This will just be very simple location information about where the event's taking place. All right, the last thing I want to do on this form is add a section to the bottom where we can add in the event schedule information. This will be all of our timings, dates, etc. So I'm going to grab a 3-column layout. We're going to bring in 2 date fields and 1 text field. And this first date field will be our start date. The second date field will be our end date. And the text field will be our duration information, how many hours per day, etc. I'm going to drag another 3-column layout just below here. And we're going to bring in 2 time fields. This is going to be start time and end time. Now, we are nearly done with this form. The last thing I want to do is create our tabs. So I'm going to go ahead and click this paint wheel icon, the form layout and appearance options. We're going to change our form type to tab. And if we scroll down in this little window, you could see we can change the visual appearance of the tabs. Let's go ahead and scroll to the top of the form really quick. So you can see after I've changed it to tab, we've got this tab bar now with tab 1. I'm going to center our tabs, and I'm going to make them just a little smaller. And then I'm also going to give them a background color, something very subtle, just a very subtle purple maybe. OK, great. Now we need to obviously configure our tabs. So I'm going to click this tab properties icon. We're going to rename the first tab here to event info. All right, we're going to add a tab. This tab will be called tasks. And we're going to add one more tab. This tab will be called documents. All right, perfect. Now, in the Documents tab, you can see here we have just an untitled section. I'm going to rename this to Documents/Attachments. Great. OK. And I'm going to close out of the Properties window here to expand our palette. And I'm going to grab a 2-column layout and drag that in. And then I'm also going to grab a attachment field and a Google Drive Picker field and bring those in. We don't need to rename these. They're pretty straightforward as they are. And the Tasks tab will have views on it. I'm just going to rename this section to Tasks. Okay. But we need to first create our task form before we can add views to this tab here. Now, the last thing I want to do is just change the width of the form. It's just a bit wide for my preference. So I'm going to go to the settings here. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom. You can see where it says Form Layout. Let's go ahead and just go with wide. All right. Save, and let's launch our form to see what it looks like. Great. This looks great. This looks pretty much exactly like the template. You can see we've got our multiple tabs. Nothing on the Task tab yet. There will be something here. And then the Documents tab, we can upload documents. Now, that just about does it for our main event form. I'm going to go ahead and create the tasks and department form off camera. There's no need for me to walk through the process of creating those. It's just as simple, and it's the same exact process. However, there are a couple special fields on the task form which I want to show you how to configure. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So here's the task form that I created, and it's missing 2 very important fields that will allow us to connect our tasks to specific events and specific departments. So let's start with the events. We're going to need a lookup field for that. I'm going to drag that in. We're going to look up from the event planning app and from the event form. We don't need to add a filter right now, but we will be adding a filter here, so that way this list only shows future or active events, but we need to first configure our event workflow before we can do that. So go ahead and click Next. Now for the drop-down list, we want to see the event title in there, and we also want to see the start date. That way, if we have events with the same name, we can distinguish them by their start date. Let's go ahead and click Next. Now, we don't want to add any additional fields to the form. And in fact, we can remove the start date field because we don't really need to add it to the form. We just want to see it in the list. So I'm going to remove that, and we're going to click Create. Great. Now, the last thing we need to do about this field is change it to Event. Perfect. Now, for our other field, we're going to use a drop-down list. So I'm going to bring in that drop-down field here. I'm going to open up the properties with this little eye icon. Every field has its own properties. List selection fields have this Options tab where you can configure the options. We could manually put in options, but we're going to look up from another form, that department form that I created. So I'm going to turn that on. Again, in the event planning app, we're going to look at the department form. And the field on that form, the only field there, the department field. Now, the last setting I want to turn on is the ascending sorting. That way our list is sorted alphabetically and ascending. And the final thing we need to do about this field is just change this drop-down name to department. Perfect. Let's go ahead and save and launch and take a look at our form. This looks pretty good. If I select event here, you can see we've got test event 1. This was just a dummy event I created with the start date there. I can select that. And then if I select the department list, you can see we've got these 3 options here. I already created the department form and added these options, so that's what we're seeing here. Well, that just about does it for our application forms. I hope you got to see how easy it is to build a form. In the next video, we'll add some workflow to our forms. In the video after that, we will create some views so we can view our submissions and our data. And finally, we will add some simple security options in the last video, as well as do some general visual cleanup of the application. So thanks for watching, and see you next time.